Good morning, and thank you, Michael, for the nice introduction. Our presentation's on our development of producing an new ethical source of battery graphite for the lithium-ion battery market. Quick read of the disclaimer. We've got two development-ready projects. Essentially, the important highlight around the developments is the first development is EcoGraf, is essentially the manufacturer of battery graphite for the lithium-ion market, taking natural flake graphite, manufacturing battery graphite. And TANZ Graphite is our parallel business producing mining graphite and producing natural flake graphite for the traditional markets. I think the important aspect is they're both standalone businesses and they're not reliant. There's no reliance on the financial modelling that we've carried out in TANZ Graphite on EcoGraf, and EcoGraf is not reliant on the supply from Tanzania. Combined, the valuation is very compelling from our current market cap, which is around 10 cents at the moment, gives us a market cap of just under 30 million. Our largest shareholder is Mitsubishi Financial Group. They're at about 13%, been a long-term supportive shareholder. We've got JP Morgan nominee, which is largely Germans, and our board owns about 10%. We've got a strong mix of experience in project development and commercial and development in mining and graphite. I should point out we've got Christoph Frey, who's on our board, a very experienced technical scientist, chemist in the development of graphite as well, so we've got significant experience. The presentation is very much focused on EcoGraf, but I will close out and give you a quick update on TANZ Graphite in Tanzania. I think it's important to recognise that we're from Perth, so we live in the land of lithium, but the fact of the matter is half the lithium-ion battery is graphite. The anode is all, in fact, graphite. And not too many people are aware that that anode is the chemistry for all lithium-ion batteries, and that's what's going into EVs. Half the battery is synthetic and the other half is natural graphite. That natural graphite all comes from China. There's no other source in the world at present, and it's using a very toxic method to produce. It uses hydrofluoric acid. Every EV will require about 27 kilos of graphite. The demand for graphite and battery minerals is going to be enormous. This is research from Bloomberg New Energy. It's essentially showing you the projection of gigafactories being built to supply batteries to a number of e-mobility uses. The main driver is EV, and essentially graphite is going to increase. Demand for graphite is going to increase about 700%. I think 2020 will be a pivotal year for the EV market. I think we believe that the Tokyo Olympics in August next year, the Japanese are going to have a massive rollout of their EVs next year, and it'll be quite exciting to see what they show us. But what's happening at the moment, there's enormous investment going on in Europe, in fact, massive investment. The most important aspect of all the gigafactories that are being built by LG Chem, SK Innovation, they're all reliant on Asian cells. And the German government is making now moves to invest significantly with the blue chip car manufacturers into developing their own batteries. So we see a shift from raw materials from Asia into Europe in about 2023, 2024, which we're positioning for. I've brought along a handout or an information memorandum that is up the back if anybody wants to look, but if you look at the news flow that's happened in the last 6 months, it's enormous. The German government's allocated €1 billion to support battery manufacturing. We've seen all the major customers in car manufacturing announcing the shift to EVs. It's real, the EVs are coming, and by 2025, it's considered somewhere between 10 and 20%, depending on projections. We're going to be having conversion from combustible engines to EVs. All these EVs and the investment is reliant on this supply, this Chinese supply. There's only two sources of in the world of this battery graphite coming from Shandong and Hubei, uses hydrofluoric acid. This is a huge expense, it's a huge environmental issue. Our view is none of the European car manufacturers want to see this in their supply chain. Their supply is very much linked to HF. The cost of HF is the graph. We've seen HF double in the last 12 months. And given the cost of the production is highly dependent on HF, there's the cost of the acid, but also the fluorine, the environmental issues around fluorines in aqueous and solid residues is an enormous issue. So that's what the world's reliant on at the moment. I guess what we've developed over the last 3 to 4 years, this is and sorry for so much detail there, but this is essentially our work program that we've completed to generate and develop our manufacturing of battery graphite. We've done an enormous body of work. We've developed a new purification process that does not use HF. We've completed an engineering study. We've completed optimization studies. We have done an enormous amount of product qualification over the last 3 years with all the major anode manufacturers in Northeast Asia, but also in Europe. We're also in the process of pursuing debt finance for this development. We're focused on putting our first facility in Kanani, Western Australia, on a scaled basis, starting off with 5,000 tonnes and scaling that up to 20,000 tonnes, which is very much matched to the demand that we've got from the anode manufacturers. The payback and the investment proposition from that is very significant. It has an NPV of $140 million US. This is the first facility that we're looking at. This is a multi-jurisdiction business plan that we've developed. Feasibility study was based on an Asian location. We're also exploring Europe, but the plan is very much to develop the first facility in Kanani, West Australia. Quick overview of how you produce battery graphite for the anode material. The feedstock is readily available on the market. It's a very fine material, 94% carbon. It's one of the lowest cost graphite available on the market. We've got agreements in place to secure that from other existing suppliers. And I guess the breakthrough from our study program last year was applying EcoGraf to other global producers, which really gave us this business case that this is a standalone. The first stage is a mechanical shaping, which is micronizing, spheronizing in little potato shapes. That's to increase density for lithium recharge capability, and then purification. The anode manufacturers want a 99.95% carbon material. And where our IP and patent operates is within the chemical processing. The micronizing and spheronizing is largely off the shelf. I won't go into the detail, but this is just the background to all the work that we've carried out. We've done enormous experimentation. We were funded by the government. We've received about $5 million in R&D to develop this purification process that has been developed over the last 3 years. A chemical process. This is our equipment that we've invested in Germany. We've got a small lab and pilot plant. The spheronizing unit is on the right, and there's some other laboratory equipment in Germany. To achieve battery grade, it's a very high-spec product. It's not only about carbon grade 99.95, we've achieved 98.98, but it's about the particle distribution, tap density, surface area, and we have to meet enormous amounts of impurities. We've distributed, as I said, about 80 samples. We've had positive feedback from all the anode manufacturers that we've met, that we can meet their specifications. The pricing for spherical graphite has been quite good over the last 18 months. It's increased 20%. And we see that very much maintaining, given the demand and pressure on production in China. There is restrictions coming in on the Chinese with around their use of HF. We've seen demand in China increase 40% during 2018, and our own feedback from the anode manufacturers, specifically in South Korea and Japan, we're expecting the demand go from around 20,000 tonnes to over 100,000 tonnes by beginning of 2021. So the outlook for this material is very good on a pricing perspective. The Kwinana facility has received state government support we've received from the Premier Lead Agency. We're very much well advanced through the pre-development activities, including the engineering, permitting and environmental approvals. And we have a planned final investment decision in the first half of next year. The reasoning for selecting Kwinana was, one, we believe the ethical, the ethical requirement and transparency on raw materials is recognised from WA. There's enormous investment being pursued by the federal and state governments to support manufacturing in the state. And when we've spoken with all the potential European customers, they've been very positive on Kwinana. So that's the reasoning behind Kwinana. There's a view of the Kwinana Industrial Park, and for people that aren't familiar with it, it's about 20 minutes south of Perth. It's very well got a significant industry within it already. There's a major conversion towards battery mineral development already with Tianqi Lithium building $1 billion lithium hydroxide plant. Nickel West, BHP's Nickel West, converting their sulphide plant into a sulphate plant. We're being offered a 6.7 hectare site from the state government, shown in green. We believe that Kwinana is going to be a hub for battery mineral manufacturing, and 5 to 10 years' time it'll be very interesting to see what Kwinana looks like. That's the output of our engineering study on a staged development, $22 million US to commence with 5,000 tonnes, which is about 20% of the market outside of China, and then growing with an additional 15,000 tonnes, and that's based on that 100,000 tonnes growth I mentioned. The most important aspect from the study is the operating cost of $2,200 US, and there's two really interesting aspects of that cost. One is it's going to be the lowest cost compared to the Chinese, which is shown in the HF acid in the graph. There are other methods of purification, but they're all more expensive. So anybody coming up with new methods that's more expensive, forget it. The market wants to see lower cost, so you have to be cost competitive. Outlook, that's just a plan of our facility, starting off with 5,000. The green is the 5,000 tonne per annum plant. The lower end, or the bottom end, is the spheronising, micronising, and a series of cyclones and micronising units to develop that particle shape that's required by the anode manufacturers, and then it moves into the top, into the purification process. Very flexible, very modular, and this can be expanded to meet demand and can be moved. The timetable for EcoGraf Kwinana is very much underway. As I mentioned, that we've well advanced through the pre-development. We had put out an announcement yesterday morning on the verification test work, independent of the work that we've done in our own lab with Pro Graphite in Germany. The test work has been confirmed by an independent laboratory, signed off by GR Engineering. That was announced yesterday and was a milestone, and really the work was being done for the debt financing that we're pursuing, that we will need the independence. We're obviously working on other technical aspects and the permitting. The 5,000 tonne initial production is an 11-month construction period. All right, now back to where we started, I guess, with the company. Anybody's familiar with Tanzania, we've been focused in Tanzania for the last 6 years to bring this Apanko project into production. We've completed an enormous body of work, a bankable feasibility study. We've had independent due diligence by KfW SRK, which were appointed by KfW IPEX Bank, the largest state-owned bank in Germany. We've got a debt process in play. We're very much hoping and believe that November is going to be a good month for us. We believe there's going to be legislative changes that will allow the final resolution that we've been waiting for KfW to finally submit their submission to the German government for a US $40 million debt package. We plan to come on with 60,000 tonnes of natural graphite. Has a huge value. We've attracted really strong support from German, hence the JP Morgan nominee, strong holding from Germans. We've got ThyssenKrupp as a major partner, and they've essentially introduced their state-owned bank with KfW. So the news in Tanzania, for anybody who's investing in Tanzania, we think it's quite positive. There's been a report out in the last week that Barrick is finally settling with the government, and we believe around mid-month we'll see that. And Parliament, we believe, is resuming, and we believe that there'll be resolutions to that final matter. So thank you very much for your time, and happy to take. Have we got some time left for questions, Michael?
Sure, we have time for one or two if you have any questions. Yes, right? And another up there.
So just a quick question. The graphite comes from Tanzania to the Kanani plant. Is that right? That's where the graphite
That was the original plan, but last year we had a significant breakthrough where we secured 11 existing producers, graphite, from South America, Europe, Asia, and applied EcoGraf purification. So EcoGraf is not reliant on that Tanzanian supply at all. So it'll be just a consumable that we buy on the market, like the chemicals.